Hi everyone, Matt Holscher here with Parent Marriage Counseling, and I'm executive coach. This is my first Periscope. I'm really excited to talk about a topic that's close to my heart and close to a lot of people. I call it baby-proofing your marriage. I've been a coach for over 6 years now. I've been focused solely on marriages for pretty much over a year. And the common denominator with at least 75% of the clients that come to see me, there's arguments, there's infidelity, there's not feeling connected, not feeling intimacy anymore. And that's why most people come, is that there's arguing, there's conflict, they don't feel intimately connected with their partner. And if that's gone on for a long time, some other bad things have happened, like infidelity, or we're trying to save their marriage, we're getting this close to divorce. And through all these sessions, what it really boils down to, I'm always looking for the cause. We can fight about infidelity all day long, and I know it's wrong and you shouldn't do it, but people do it, so why do they do it? And the most thing I want to know is, if somebody's doing it, how do I get happily married people to avoid it so that they don't have to go through what so many other couples do? And when I trace all that down, it comes down to this one little thing. And it's actually kind of the whole point of marriage. It's like the little bundle of joy. The whole purpose of marriage is the cause of most of the stress, and probably the really, really root cause of most of the divorces that we see today. I know that can take a little while to sink in, but it's a huge difference, and this is why I've come to feel that. Here's what I've observed in so many couples, and I want to share this with the whole world so that people understand it, because it's something that I think most married people figure out 5-10 years down the road if their marriage survived the early years of kids, and nobody talks about it, and that is sex. There's this great cosmic joke in the way that we're programmed, because our brain, and it's been studied in functional MRI machines. Helen Fisher's book, Why We Love, is a great book, because she found these 3 areas in the brain: desire, romance, and attachment. And they all light up independently, but when they get into sync, and you feel desire for someone, you've been romantically attracted to them, you feel an attachment to them, guess what? You want to have sex, and sex leads to making baby. And that's what Mother Nature wants. She wants two people to come together, make baby, and have genetic variation, variety. All right, so you feel this compelling urge to do it, and then after you have baby, and even while you're pregnant, there's this wonderful feeling. Like, the couple feel really tight. You go through the rituals. It feels wonderful. And then baby comes. And for about 3 to 6 months, you're still just full of what I call shock and awe. Just like, wow, this is blowing my mind. I can't believe I'm a dad. This baby's awesome. And it just, you feed it, it sleeps, it makes a mess, you change the diaper. But it's awesome. But then this thing happens, especially with nursing mothers, but with pretty much all mothers. I'd say at least 75% of women go through this. And their sexual libido, no matter where it was before you had baby, it may fluctuate during pregnancy, but once the baby arrives, it goes through the floor. You're focusing all your energy and all your attention on the baby, which is what Mother Nature wants. The baby needs a lot of care, and it takes a lot from you, and you will do anything for your child. The only thing you won't do for your child is take time away from your child to spend time with your husband. And the great cosmic joke is that research is just coming out now to see how men have the exact opposite reaction. That baby comes, they are so full of love, they're out of their heads. They love you, they love the baby, they love the whole process, and they feel like the freaking king of the world. Like, yeah, I made that. Yes, ladies, you did all the work and you deserve all the credit. We only took 5, 10, 15 minutes in the whole making of that, but we're so proud of it that we're just like, wow, we did that. Let's do it again. I feel so close to you. I want you. I want to hug you. I want to kiss you. I want to make love to you. So men's libido, no matter where it's at, generally after baby goes through the roof. So yours got cut in half and his doubled. And now we have this huge, huge gulf. And it's interesting because when I look at a marriage, I kind of use sex as the barometer for its health. If you're having sex once a week, you're healthy. Once or twice a week, you're green, you're good to go. Because there are those off weeks or those times that stress and work and vacation and stuff gets in the way. So maybe only do it 2 or 3 times in a month. But guess what? You're still okay. When you're down to about once a month on average over a couple of months, I call that the yellow zone. Like, it's not good. You need to look out. That's not enough. And problems are going to start arising later. It's kind of like a forest fire. It dries out. The forest dries out. That's not the problem. But when it's dry and there's a spark with an emotional connection with another person, boom. You get a forest fire, infidelity, very, very easily. So you have to look out for that. Once a month, everything's drying out. A lot of the couples that come to see me in my practice, they haven't had sex for 2 years. Or they tried once and it feels forced and it feels unnatural and it doesn't feel like it was before baby. That, my friends, is perfectly natural. It's not going to be the same. Woman has baby, gets that thing out, and not all the parts go back to where they were before. Sex is going to feel incredibly different, awkward. You feel fat, you feel exhausted, you feel uncomfortable with your body, and then you do what you did before, and what worked before may not work like it does now, and you're like, what's wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you. It's just everything that your body just went through to make the baby, and it takes a while for things to shift, and you get a new normal. It's not the same normal that it was before. And this is what starts creating all this conflict within the marriage. You've got wife doesn't want to have any sex, man wants to have twice as much sex. Plus, a lot of men feel respected, cared for, and loved just by having sex with them. And as much as we think men don't know the difference in sex is sex, it's not. And believe it or not, most men can tell the difference when you're really wanting to have sex with them, even if you're tired and not feeling the best, versus when you're just phoning it in and having, sympathy sex. Oh, here, please, just get on me and get it over with. I'm done with this. Just hurry up and make yourself happy, okay? I want you to be happy. I feel bad about it, but I can't enjoy it, so just enjoy yourself like I'm not here. And these are the type of resentments that come up and really start driving people crazy after a while. And that's how they end up in my office. So the first thing that you really need to know when baby-proofing your marriage is that baby's going to mess things up. The libidos are going to get way off kilter for a while, and it takes 2 or 3 years for things to sort of equalize again, and that's going to be normal. A lot of times sex is going to feel forced, it's going to feel awkward, and you're going to have to schedule it. You're going to have to push yourself to do it to a certain degree. I don't recommend really pushing yourself if it's desperately uncomfortable. Then you need to seek a therapist, talk to your doctor, find out why. Once you're clear, everything should be fine. But if you're really forcing yourself, don't cut your man off, because he's going to misinterpret that as feeling rejected, unappreciated. Most men come into my office and they feel like, man, I'm just a paycheck. I'm just the bottom of the totem pole. One man even told me once, the dog gets more attention than I do. I wish you would treat me like the freaking cat and just scratch my belly, because that would feel so much better than the coldness and the rejection I feel every time we get into bed. And eventually, men, when they get rejected over and over and over again, we just stop. And when we stop, that's when things start getting into trouble. If you don't want to have it, all of a sudden the mind starts thinking, well, maybe I need to go get it somewhere else. Maybe there's something wrong with me. Now I need to go get validation. I need to feel accepted. And that's where the emotional attachment comes in. You start talking to other people, and then those conversations develop. And if the conditions get right and everything gets dry enough, that's where the infidelity comes from. So, when baby-proofing that marriage, sex is something that you got to keep your eye on. It's like the canary in the coal mine. It will tell you how healthy your relationship is and making sure everything's okay. Now, ladies, I understand, mothers, taking care of the baby is a full-time job. You're new at this. And especially if you're breastfeeding, oh my gosh, I get it. It's not comfortable, and after having the baby on you, the last thing you want is your husband on you. Like, I totally understand that, and that is a normal feeling. So guys, sorry. Part of having a kid is understanding that your wife is going to go through some things that she's never experienced before, and she's going to need some time to process. And part of that is leaving her alone physically, because she's not going to want to feel physical attention. When you're exhausted, tired, and you've had baby crawling on you all day, the last thing you want is your husband crawling on you. So the solution to this, and it's not really easy, but the solution to this is to get some time away from baby. All right? That's where hopefully you have in-laws, you can find babysitters, join a play group on Meetup, do something so that you can trade kid time. Because if you're taking care of your kid, taking care of another kid isn't that much work. I'm the father of twins. They're turning 9 next week. And I know 1 + 1 is just a little bit more work because you're doing all the same things anyway. Making 1 bottle versus making 2 bottles, making 1 meal versus making 2 meals or 4 meals isn't that much. So find another couple with a child similar age that they can play together or be together and trade off with other parents so you don't have to pay for babysitting. I'll take them this weekend overnight, you take them next week overnight. I see we got some good comments coming in below too, and we'll talk about some of those sexual issues a little bit later, or some other suggestions. But yes, she can still do that. That was a good one. So it's not just traditional sex, exactly. You can have different types of sex, because usually your man wants to feel your touch and wants to feel your appreciation. So there is oral sex and there's also manual sex. And either one feels good, because when you're masturbating, you're feeling pleasure, but also creating it yourself. And one thing that makes sex feel intimate and more fabulous, more connected, is when you can just relax and receive. So doing that for men and doing it for women, you two guys, it's not just for the ladies, feels really, really good and helps create that connected intimacy. The other thing that really helps with the intimacy, that's not as much work, not as much investment as sex, is to do a little eye gazing. Just stand there in front of your woman, a foot apart, and look into each other's eyes for a couple of minutes. It's one of the things I do with couples in almost every one of my first sessions when I take a new couple in, and it's how I gauge the emotional temperature of the couple. If you can look in someone's eyes for 2 minutes, and then look at me and say, I don't feel anything for this woman, then I know that this marriage is really on the rocks and it's going to be a lot of work. What usually happens is somewhere between 30 seconds and a minute, I'll see both couples just kind of soften. The woman will kind of lean in. And then if the man's smart, take note guys, you pull her into a hug and pull her into you. And then I know we still have the emotional connection, we have the intimacy that we need. There's usually some crying, some release, and all of a sudden the couple just comes together again. And that's what you want. That's intimacy. That's the difference between intimacy and sex. And a lot of people don't know that difference. The beautiful part is most of the time intimacy is coming along with sex, so we think sex is the answer, but it's not. Really what you want is the intimacy. And if nothing else, just spending 3 minutes hugging your partner. Hug them, usually put one arm under the other one on top so your hearts can get together. And just practice breathing together. First breathe at the same time, and then do what's called alternate breathing, so that when one person exhales, the other person inhales. When that person exhales, the other person inhales. And so that when your breathing comes together into a synchronization, you're going to have this wonderful feeling of oneness with your partner. That's the intimacy, that's the connection. And that's what gives you a little hit of oxytocin in the brain and makes you feel the attachment, feel the love again that sometimes dries up and disappears. So in baby-proofing the marriage, sex is really the one really, really big thing that has to get back into balance right away, because baby will throw it off. It will throw it off big time. The second thing is child raising techniques. If you come from a similar culture, from the same town, and your parents were brought up the same way, and you were raised the same way, raising kids doesn't create much conflict because your expectations and what's been programmed into you is about the same. Here in Miami, there's a lot of mixed races. I'm from Iowa. My wife is from Buenos Aires, Argentina. And the way we raise kids is completely different. In Iowa, you cook food, child eats the food, child doesn't want to eat the food, they have the option to go to bed hungry. But that's it. And dinner is for an hour. You eat what you don't eat. Sorry, kitchen's closed. Game over. Go to bed. But with the Latins that I've observed, my wife wasn't quite this bad, but some of them I've seen are just like, wow. If the child doesn't want the food, mom will cook another meal. If they don't like that meal, they'll cook another meal. And then they'll chase the child around the house with a spoonful of food because the child must eat. If the child doesn't eat, something's wrong with you as a mother. The child's going to get sick, they're going to get bad grades, and they're going to hate you. All because they didn't eat. Not eating is the highest sin of all sins. So they chase their kids around with food. So a lot of the conflicts I've seen that comes up in marriage is usually because of child-raising expectations that are inside of you that you've never really discussed with your partner. So part of baby-proofing your marriage is to sit down and say, how do we want dinner to go? What are the rules around food? And who's making the final decision? You know, this is another really big nugget. There can only be one captain of the ship. All right? We think an ideal marriage is 50-50 where both partners are equal, and I will tell you I do not agree with that. There can only be one captain of the ship. There can be different departments. You can spread things out, but somebody has to be the decider and somebody has to have the final decision. It always has to be 51-49 for various categories. So for example, my wife makes the decisions with the kid. If she says this is the way it's going to be, I say, okay dear, I will work with you to help make that happen. When there are other problems like outside the home, I'm responsible for the cars and the maintenance. And when she says, honey, I'd really love a new Fiat 500, I say, okay, that's close. You can have any car you want as long as it's a Honda. I have a relationship with the dealership. I like the cars. Anything you want as long as it's a Honda. You want a Fiat 500? That's a Honda Fit. So that's what you're going to get. Let's go test drive it. And she's happy with that. Because I have to take care of this. I have to negotiate the contract. I have to take care of the vehicles. So she gives me that little bit of leeway because I make the final decision on that, even though I'm taking in her input and doing everything possible to make her happy. Whew. So now when baby proofing, in case you and your wife didn't have enough challenges with the baby, the next big challenge is going to be your parents. And when it comes to baby proofing a marriage, the next thing is to set boundaries and expectations with the in-laws because they're all different and they all want their time with baby and they want to raise the child the way they think it should have been done because they're experts at it already because they made you and you're great, right? So they want to help raise the child and they'll often do things without permission or without honoring your right to raise the child the way you want to do it, including letting you make the learning mistakes that you need to make. Because they don't understand that you know what you didn't like about your childhood, and there's usually a few things that you say to yourself where it's like, man, you know, my dad worked really hard. He left every day Monday morning, got back late Friday night, did his sales expense report Saturday morning, and Sunday he just wanted to drink a beer and watch golf on TV. And as a dad, I understand it now. I get it, and I'm so sorry. When I was a kid, man, all I wanted to do was throw a ball with you, toss the football around, spend some time with you. And later on, we got to do that with fishing. But for a while there, it was just like, oh, I want to spend time with my dad. So as a father, I created my coaching practice so that I'm free to spend time with my kids. I pick them up from school. I do homework with them. And then when my wife gets home, she cooks dinner. She finishes homework. She gets to spend fun time with them. And I work in my marriage coaching practice because a lot of my clients need that time from 6 to 10 o'clock to meet with me so they're not losing time from work and losing valuable money. So it works out. We found that balance and I get to honor the things from my childhood that are important to me. But we're talking about in-laws. Sorry, little detour there. Your in-laws also have ways they want to raise the kids, so you got to take that into account. I'll never forget when we had our twins, that was a lot of work. And my mother came to help us for the first 4 months. And one of the goals we wanted was for the kids to sleep through the night. Like I was tired of getting up 5 times a night to feed the kids. And my mom, with her previous experience, said, hey, why don't we give them a little rice cereal, fill those bellies up a little bit, and then they'll sleep through the night. Seems pretty simple, and it's just rice cereal. So one afternoon, while my wife was still at work, we made up a little batch of rice cereal and gave it to them, and they ate it. So my mother was like, hey, this will be great. We can do this again later tonight with Andrea. When I came home to tell Andrea this, she was not so happy. In fact, she was pissed. Why? because she wanted to do that herself. There are a lot of firsts, a lot of things you get to do one time with a kid, and that's the only time, and that needs to be reserved for mom and dad. A lot of the grandparents already have an insight on what those firsts are, and they will do it first, just because they remember how much fun it is and they want to experience that again with their grandkids. So as parents, to baby-proof your marriage, you need to keep the parents at bay and people on both sides so that they know what's yours, what are your boundaries, and what are the firsts that you want to experience. And it's a good idea to tell your grandparents, your parents and her parents in advance, if there's something you want to do with your kids, that's fine, but I need you to ask me first. So, to baby-proof your marriage, being able to look out for sex and keeping both needs met and keeping a deep understanding and appreciation for both partners is critical to keeping everything in balance. You need to discuss how you want to raise your kids, what your expectations are, and set boundaries and roles and responsibilities in advance so that when stressful situations come up, it's not an argument and it's not a power struggle. If you already decide in advance who the decider is, you don't have to argue about it. You just have to make sure both people feel heard, and then it'll be much more understood. And the last thing is, when you decide how you want to raise your kids, make sure you share those expectations with the in-laws, with the grandparents on both sides, so that baby doesn't become a tug-of-war. You don't have sharing violations, where if you have one night here, you need to spend one night at the other house. How are the holidays going to go? These are all important decisions that you need to make as new parents for the household, because you need to be the deciders for your children. That's all I got today. If there are any questions, feel free to type them in below. Otherwise, I'm Matthew Holscher with Parent Marriage Counseling. And if you need any help, you're welcome to reach out to me. My phone number is 305-741-4284. Send me a message here on Twitter, and I'd be happy to learn more about your situation and see if I can help you have a happy, fulfilling, parent-based marriage life. Have a great afternoon.